disturbing atmosphere was summed up for me, said Latham, by one medium-sized specialist contractor with years of experience who said bluntly, there is no trust at all in this industry. It was reflected by a large international main contractor who said, listen, who said that if he was treated fairly by clients and able to make a reasonable profit, he would respond appropriately and give his client a good deal. He felt that many of the difficulties which currently beset the industry would simply disappear. Too little trust, not enough money, a mighty machine that requires oil in its engine to drive it has grit instead. Latham, 1994. Just go back a bit. Sir Ernest Simon, 1944, 1948. A more collaborative approach to design and construction was his theme. Sir Harold Emerson produced a report, 1961. Adversarial and conflict-ridden relationships, he reported. Sir Harold Banwell, 1964. Banwell. He said, right at the front, in this first short chapter, which is the most important in the report, the Banwell Committee, this is a report on what the committee said, outlined the main problem, namely that the various sections of our industry have long acted independently, and this chapter includes what is probably the most important single sentence in the committee's report. Quote, while we make suggestions for alterations in practices and procedures, these will be of no avail unless those engaged in the industry themselves think and act together. And going back to 1934, a chap called Alfred Bosom, a surveyor, in his book Reaching for the Skies, said the process of UK construction, 1934, the process of UK construction, instead of being an orderly and consecutive advance down the line, is all too apt to become a scramble and a muddle. And my favourite comment, I suppose, over the years is by Dennis Hinton at the chairman of ARCAC, International Conference on Architects Registration. He said, quote, this brings me to the point which I promised to come back to when I referred to the so-called building team. As teams go, it really is rather peculiar, not at all like a cricket 11, more like a scratch bunch consisting of one batsman, one goalkeeper, one pole vaulter, one polo player, normally brought together for a single enterprise. Each member has different objectives, different training and techniques, and different rules. The relationship is unstable, even unreliable, with very little functional cohesion, and no loyalty to a common end beyond that of coming through unscathed. Well now, by 2014, that must all be behind us. Look, as I see it, there has to be, in my view, for the purposes of working together, there has to be a common purpose. There has to be, rather like Dennis Hinton, there can't be separate objectives. There has to be at least a common purpose between the parties that all the parties can identify with. Making friends with reality. The employer wants, I think, that phrase that I've heard over the years, a fair quality product on time and on budget, whatever that means. And the contractor wants the same, yes? But the contractor wants to make a profit as well. So I say, for the purposes of common purpose, until you get used to the contractor helping him to make a profit, you'll never have a common purpose. I want to add to that, want to come back to that. When it comes to this business of helping him to make get the common purpose, helping him to make a profit, will you please stop dealing with this fiction? I want you to put the builder, you builders that are in the room, I want you to put these builders back in their place. What are builders good at? Building. You're no damn good at designing. I really mean it. And I want you architects to stop running from the design. You know, you've spent how many years to become an architect, to get all those lovely letters after your name? Some 6, 7 years? They're treasured, aren't they? Well, what on earth are you doing letting a builder take over design? the builder hasn't got any design, forgive me builders, but you haven't got any design qualifications at all. And if you do get a design build contract, do you know who very frequently designs the building? Do you know who does it? No, he doesn't go to an architect. As much as he can get done by a subbie, it's the subbie that does the design. And the subbie knows very little about how to design anything. And if you ask the subbie what qualifications he's got after his name, it certainly won't include RIBA or whatever engineering qualifications. So will you please, let's stop the chocolates coming off the end, stop the machine, let's go back to buildings being built by builders and the design and specification being done by the architect. And by the way, I want it done like this, and I do support what Latham was trying to say when he talked about the separation of design and construction being long since a source of controversy. People interpreted that to say, let the builder do all the design. That's not what he was getting at. What he was getting at was what I want to put to you here now. To make this reality work, I want pre-contract. I want you pre-contract to get the design and specification pre-building contract to get it all done. I want the architect to say, we're the designers and specifiers. This is what I want you to build. Now that's time consuming and it's worthy of better fees. I accept entirely a notion that of early contractor involvement. David Mosey's written a very good book about it. I don't agree with his approach, but I do agree with the principle of early contractor involvement. I want this design and specification team, this pre-let activity, I want that team to include somebody who can bring in buildability. I've said here it needs the input of a buildability person in the design stage for a fee, but not the same contractor who also builds the project. If you want it done for a lump sum, I want the contractor, and the contractors love this idea, the contractor says, I will now price it. And of course, if it's pre-designed, we're not facing a whole raft of variations. Some. But not what we've got at the moment, which is out of control. So the pre-bid people write the script to be eventually performed by the later chosen builder. Well, ever since I came to this industry as a young man, I've heard this set of words: teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, partnering, working together is the key to good construction, and I entirely believe it. But if you want teamwork, you have to find a common purpose. And if you can't hack it, do me a very big favor: stop whinging. I don't want to hear you talking about collaboration and cooperation and teamwork. Emerson and Simon and Latham didn't tell us how to achieve it. And I've attempted in this paper to ask how. Find profit in the common purpose, get rid of risk dumping in design and build, reform the standard forms into tools, oust risk dumping in fiddled forms or homemade forms, design the project before the beginning the work, place the work at realistic prices, adopt a payment concordat, oust a problem that I haven't really highlighted, it's the partisanship between when an architect or an engineer is supposed to give certificates or extensions of time. He's partisan. It's got to stop. You've got to meet reality. The way you stop it is by telling the client to mind his own business. Treasure trust and keep it.